Hello and welcome to the fresh module of Western political thought. Today we will be talking about Aristotle's theory of citizenship. So let's see, what are we going to discuss today? We will be talking about what is the concept of citizenship according to Aristotle, the negative approach about citizenship, Aristotle's views on citizenship, what is leisure and how leisure is defined by Aristotle, exclusion from citizenship, criticism, and finally the conclusion. Aristotle, in his book Third of Politics, talks about citizenship. And he asks a question, what is a state? Though he has already responded about state in his book First of Politics, where he says that the state is an association of association. But in his book Third, he changed the definition and he says state is an assemblage of citizens. So state is a composite and the citizens are its part. So he investigates on the part and he gave more importance to the citizens. What was the condition of citizens in Athens? He tries to analyze that in Athens there were two systems. One was based on birth and the second was based on blood. So when we say based on blood, that means the son of the citizens were entitled to become citizens. Whereas if you are born in a particular place or area, automatically they were considered to be as citizens. So in Athens, he has seen the monopoly of privilege class. The citizens' descendants were being citizens, whereas the resident aliens and slaves were being deprived of citizenship. Before we come to the definition of citizenship according to Aristotle, he tries to highlight who all are not to be considered as citizens. So firstly, he says, mere residence in a particular place does not entitle a person to be citizen. And the reason behind that is even the foreigners and the slaves reside in a particular state or a territory and they are not entitled to become citizens. Secondly, he says legal rights of suing and being sued also does not make a person citizens. Why? Because these rights are also being provided to aliens by treaties. Whereas, thirdly, he says, descent from a citizen does not fulfill him a citizenship. So, not at all essential, a child who is born by a citizen parent is termed as a citizen. So, what is citizenship? As we talk about the concept of citizenship in modern terms, if we are born in a particular place, in a state, automatically we get citizenship. But for Aristotle, it is the duties which make a person citizen. So he rejects all these concepts of citizenship which are being prevailing at the time in modern world. Before we talk about the definition of citizenship, there are certain questions which comes in the mind of Aristotle. The first question which he asks himself, he says, what is that which makes a citizen? So what is that which makes a citizen? And he responds to himself that it is the function which entitles a person to become a citizen. In the previous slide, he has already discussed that the mere residence, enjoyment of legal rights, as well as a person who is born in a particular state or the person who resides in a particular state is not being considered as a citizen. So what does it makes a citizen? That is the function, he says. The next question which comes into his mind is, which function? So the answer to the question is, it is the function of participation in judicial and deliberative efforts. So judicial and deliberative powers, which is also a kind of definition given by Aristotle to his citizens, The ones, those who can participate in the law-making process, the person who could act as a jurist, can make strategies, plans for the government, and they can execute those plans, can only be considered as a citizen. So that is function, or you could say duties, which makes a person citizen. The next question he asks is, what qualifies a person to participate in deliberative and judicial functions? The response to the question is capacity to rule and to be ruled in turn. Not only the capacity to rule over others, but also the capacity to be ruled in turn. All those legislatures, those who are framing laws, they should have a twofold strategies. It is not just to frame good laws will make them a good citizen, but also the laws which are being framed by them, they should also be able to follow those laws, and that is what entitle them to be a good citizen. Then he asks a question, what makes this capacity possible? So the answer is, it is the leisure. Now, what is leisure? We usually say leisure means free time, a time where we suspend all our duties, our activities, and we relax ourselves. But for Aristotle, leisure is different from what we believe in. The next question which Aristotle asks is, how leisure is possible? So Aristotle says that by holding property and owing slaves. If you have property and if you owe slaves, definitely you get leisure, you get free time. He states three significant reasons to possess property. First one, he says, property-less persons does not have time to speculate. Those people who have property can think, they have free time to think, whereas those who do not have property, they do not have enough time to think about the state, about the activities of the state. So that's the thing, the property-less people, they do not have time to speculate. Secondly, he says, does not feel much responsible towards the state. Why they are not much responsible, or they have no responsibility towards the state? Because they have no property and they are not paying taxes. If a person is not paying taxes, they are not responsible towards the state. And thirdly, does not hold experience of management of private affairs, unlike a propertied man. A person who holds property automatically learns how to design strategies, how to make policies, how to ask persons to work. So they learn the managerial skills and automatically they display the qualities of a leader. So the ones who know how to manage private property, they can easily manage the state affairs also. And that is why the people, those who hold property, they have leisure to think about the state. Secondly, in his response, he talks about owing slaves. When we talk about owing slaves, why slaves are essential? Why a person who holds property and owes slaves give him leisure? Because slaves are the means to fetch the ends. If you have slaves, automatically your day-to-day activities will be managed by them and automatically you are free. And secondly, provide enough leisure for the master for the cultivation of virtues. For a good citizen, Aristotle says, a human being should have virtues, and these virtues can be cultivated only when you have free time. Now let us talk about the definition of leisure as discussed by Aristotle. Aristotle says that there are two kinds of activities. First, which is considered to be as means to an end, and the second one is not a means to an end, those activities which are being driven by self-worth. The first one, means to an end, he says these are those activities which are being performed by an individual to earn its to earn his livelihood. Like for example, plowing fields, stitching garments, hunting, all these activities are the activities which a person do to earn his daily bread. And secondly, those activities like dancing, painting or composing poetry are the activities which we do. Why? Because we like doing it. So they are worth doing. Such kind of activities, they help in enhancing the virtues. According to Aristotle, those individuals who have devoted themselves in the activities of means to an end, they are not fit for the ruling class. Further, Aristotle talks about who all are being excluded from the concept of citizenship. As we have already seen, only those people who are involved in the deliberative and judicial affairs, deliberative that means those who are involved in the lawmaking process, those who are legislating, executing and acting as a jurist are only considered as a citizen. Those who are excluded from citizenship, first one are the slaves. Why slaves are excluded? The reason behind that he justifies and he gives is they are only means to an end. They are the ones, those who are struggling hard to get their daily bread. So they are the means, they are not the end in itself. So they are just the means to an end, so they are not being included under citizenship. Secondly, they have to do manual work. And according to Aristotle, manual work debases human soul. You do not have enough time to cultivate virtue, and the soul is also being debased. Thirdly, he says they do not have leisure in order to cultivate virtues. Virtues like generosity, hospitality, and the level of intelligence which has been required to frame laws are all missing for a slave. Second, he says all tradesmen. Now, all tradesmen, businessmen, they are also not being considered to be a slave, because there are a lot of people who are alien residing in a state and doing business. So they also cannot be considered as a citizen, plus also they do not have time to invest. A businessman is always busy in his own business and he has no time to think over the affairs of the state, and that is why they will be excluded from citizenship according to Aristotle. The next category who is excluded from citizenship are the mechanist or the labor class. Same reason he gives for them also: lack of leisure, number one, and manual toils actually deliberalizes the soul and make it unfit to enlighten the virtues. Then fourth is the women's. What a contrast with his master, where the Plato was considered to be as a first feminist, and Plato said if the women are imparted with good education along with the male members, automatically they'll be good citizens also. Whereas for Aristotle, women are inferior with intellectual capacity. So they are only good for household work. They cannot come out from the four walls of their houses, and so they will not be considered as citizens. Fifth is the old people. Old people, they lack active conduct. They are not fit to work for the duties of the state. So since they are incapable, they will not be considered as citizens. And lastly, children. Why? Because of their immature judgment. They are not mature enough to choose their station of work, to take right decision, what is correct and what is incorrect, and that is why children are not being considered to be as citizens. Finally, coming to the criticism of Aristotle's theory of citizenship, we could analyze that his theory has limited scope and overly aristocratic. Limited scope, he has given citizenship only to those who are being involved in the legislative and judicial activities of the state, whereas all other people who are not involved in the judicial and legislative activities are being excluded from citizenship. Plus, this is also aristocratic. Only the elite class, those who possess property are being given rights of citizenship. Secondly, he says he has given undue importance to holding of property. That means he is creating or dividing the whole state into haves and have-nots. The ones, those who have property, and the ones, those who do not hold property. So those who have property could be the citizens, whereas who do not have property are not being termed as a citizens. Thirdly, critique says that the legislative function does not streamline with universal application. It is not at all essential that in every state there are legislative and judicial functions which are being performed. If these functions are not being performed, then who will be the citizens? Fourth, exclusion of artisans and mechanists refutes his organic theory of state. In the previous module, we discussed about organic theory, where he says individuals are the part and state is a whole, and each and every part is important. Since each and every part is important, so these artisans, mechanists, all are the part of the state. And then in his citizenship, he has ignored all these people from the concept of citizenship. A mere speculation is not enough. Manual labor, the main disqualification factor to be a citizen, is equally important. According to critiques, those who have been involved in manual labor, they add value to commodity. The producers, business class, they all are adding value to the commodity, and they are also providing us with the necessities of life. If they are not important, then who is important? A citizen is able to work freely and independently only because they are present. They are fulfilling our means to an end, providing us with food, clothing and shelter. But Aristotle has rejected them from citizenship. Denial of equal rights or participation in state activities is unjustifiable. In the present context, democracy says each and every citizen is important, and citizens directly or indirectly participate in the affairs of the state. Whereas for Aristotle, each and every citizen is not participating in the affairs of the state, which is not justice. Some of the critique says his conception of citizenship cannot be applied in large population like India, China. We cannot divide people into haves and have-nots, some as a citizen and some not. Majority of the individuals will remain without citizenship, so it's not applicable. His conception of citizenship does not fit in the representative democracy, where the people are participating in the affairs of the state. Next, he says he deprived the working class of educative influence to participate in political activities. The working class which is educated, which has knowledge, and they can very nicely and they can properly participate in the affairs of the government, but Aristotle does not even allow them to participate in the affairs of the state. Finally, we can say all those people who have virtues, those who have property, and they have leisure to cultivate their virtues are only considered to be citizens, whereas the working class are being devoid of citizenship. He also talks about the virtues of good citizens in democracy as well as in oligarchy. Aristotle says that a good citizen is different in a democratic country and whereas in an oligarchic government. Why? Because according to the rules and regulation, people have to behave themselves. So what exactly is a good citizen? The ones which are operating in democracy. And finally, his idea highly reflects conservatism. He is conservative by nature. He has adopted the same concept which was prevailing in Athens, that those who have property and those who already are given rights to participate in the affairs of the government will be participating and the others will not be participating in the affairs of the government. That's all for today.